Welcome to the most incredible marketing show ever. The show where each week a panel of respected marketing strategists, all trained and certified by the legendary Dan Kennedy, share their wisdom, experience, strategies, and insights on how to use Dan Kennedy's philosophy on business and marketing in any type of business, and that you can apply to your business immediately. Here's your host, Craig Valine.
Hello, I'm Craig Valine, and welcome to another episode of the most incredible marketing show ever. And today's topic is how to write irresistible sales copy, or introduction to copywriting, which is a very important tool in using Dan Kennedy style marketing. And so, Dan, let's start with you today. What is copywriting in its basic form?
Well, copywriting is really an art, okay? And there's not many folks that can do it very well. I see a lot of copy people, things that people are putting out that I can go fix. But copywriting basically, and there's a lot of people, there's misconception that you can't use long form copy, okay? And if done right, you can. And the whole idea behind good copy is to continually suck them in to get them to keep reading, i.e. your prospect or the person that you're trying to get on board. And we've seen long form sales letters online in emails that work. So, and it kind of goes back to something that we talked about a little bit in the last episode about you have to enter the conversation in their mind, or one of the key elements that I look at when I'm writing copy is what's keeping them up at night. What's their big pain? What are they thinking about? What are they worrying about? And if you can go and address that early in the copy, some people go, yeah, I'm going to talk about that, but you only get a few seconds in some cases. You have to address that element right away, early on in the copy, and then continue. I'll give you one example of getting them to keep reading is you can tease something early in the copy that is something that they're going to want to know more about or that they're interested in, and say, I'll talk about that a little bit more or a little bit later, okay? And then hit it maybe on page 2 or 3 or even in the PES, you can use it. So copy is all about drawing them in so that you can talk to them about what you want to talk to them. And there's different forms. There's dual reader path copy, where we all know that most people skip read, right? And so you have to design your copy so that the points that you want to make are standing out from that copy. And again, it draws them in to read the rest of the copy, if you will. Does that help?
Hey, Craig, what was the question? What is copywriting? Copywriting is words that sell. It's salesmanship in print. That's what copywriting is.
Right. So why does so Steve, continue to that. Why does an entrepreneur need to learn how to write copy?
Because you need to sell. You sell or die. We're in business, right? We're in business to sell. So words that sell is copywriting. And then, like Dan says, you can put them into a video, put them into an email, into a social media post, into an ad, into a letter, into anything you want. But you got to know, or you got to know somebody and pay them money who knows how to write words that sell. There are words that sell and words that do nothing. We all know that. We've all seen ads and not responded, and we've seen other ads and wanted like crazy to respond. That's because that person wrote the ad to get us to respond. They wrote words that sell. That's copyright.
Well, I just want to say something contrary to what you said. Okay.
Perfect.
Craig. First of all, business owners don't need to learn how to write copy. In fact, I discourage most of them from doing that because it's not something that you learn in a short period of time or are able to master quickly. You need to know the basics of copy, okay? But in reality, in my opinion, the best thing you can do when it comes to copywriting is hire someone that has a proven track record.
Thank you for seconding exactly what I said.
Yeah, but it's not every business owner has to learn it. I don't believe
Well,
that.
that's not what I
And I don't
said.
think they should
Everyone
try.
has to either write words that sell or pay someone to write words that sell.
Exactly.
You got to sell.
Yep.
So Mark, you have just talked about when you were attracting DJs to your events or to members to your events, and they didn't know. You said you were using long form copy, and they said we can't do that in my industry. Well, and you said what got them here? What got you here? Right? Kind of explain that and talk about long copy versus short copy and stuff like that.
I love the subject of copywriting because when I discovered it, and it's a slippery slope, which is actually double entendre there, because slippery slope is what you want to achieve with the sales copy. But boy, you open Pandora's box. There's so much to learn in copywriting. We're just going to really tickle the surface today. Right. But the problem with learning copywriting is that when you start doing it, it's like having all the 48 colors of crayons in the box and wanting to use every right. color in there. That's kind of what my first sales letters look like. But yes, I have an example of a long form copy. And essentially the one thing that I really want to point out is that you are supposed to be writing or hiring somebody to write to buyers, ignoring the non-buyers. It's kind of like I tell family members, hey, listen, I know you mean well by telling me nobody's going to read all that, but if you were a vegetarian, I could never sell you steak. So it doesn't matter how much I wrote about steak, you're not buying it. But if you actually love steak, you don't want to just see a picture of a steak and the price or a phone number. You want to know everything about that steak and where we grew it and what we did. You want to write for the buyers and not for the non-buyers. And I think they discovered that because when I flagged the actual DJs with copy, here was one of the postcards that came out of that. And it started with a display ad that I was running in a magazine. And this was the copy of the display ad. And I don't know if you could see that really well, but it's really tiny. I think I got it down to about 9.5 to 10 point print there. But I used every color crayon in the box in this one because I was writing to the people. And here's the part about it. You have to grab their attention first. So it has to be with the headline. On this one, I always say flagging. So here, emergency, mobile DJ industry meltdown. This was around the time when people were like getting iPods and thinking they could do DJ their own weddings. And that was like kind of a big thing. So I entered the problem conversation in their mind. Hey, there's a meltdown happening. And the job of the headline, there's only one job, and it's to get them to read the next line. And the next line was the fortune hidden in your DJ business that many will never discover. Blah, blah, blah. Another headline on the back to get them to read. 6 familiar mobile DJ troubles. Which would you like to overcome once and for all? So leading with a question grabber. And then now what does that tickle? I got to know what these 6 troubles are and to see if I have them. So I used that element here and went subheads is trouble 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This was written so long ago, of course. Nowadays, you just go to AI and find out what is the biggest trouble that everybody's having, because you'll find out the most common problems within that niche. And you can use those. I knew these just from familiarity because I was one of them. So I knew the troubles and I used those as the subhead and I addressed it. Now, basically in the offer here, call to action at the bottom with the cutout line to really draw the attention to it. I was offering a free report with a CD. It was essentially a 20-page sales letter with an audio CD of me practically reading the letter. But what I did to create engagement with this piece is I'll say, here are the few things you're going to discover in the audio CD. And I will put the bullet point on there and I'll say, that's going to be at 2 minutes and 38 seconds. I mean, it's like just that curiosity. I pushed every button to try to get them in there. And then I put a lot of salt in the wound. So I hope that illustrates that. Okay. Let me know if I explained that all right. But I just I used long form copy because I knew once I sucked them in, I was going to get them.
Yeah. Mike, Richelle, we'll get to you, young lady. Mike, how important does psychology play in writing copy?
A little bit. So, I mean, for the real student and to, Steve and Dan's point, I mean, I think I disagree with Dan to a point. I think if you're going to be a business owner, you're in the marketing of that business, you ought to know that. You have to have some fundamental level. You should be able to write. It doesn't mean you have to be a Dan Kennedy level type copywriter. I think oftentimes we marketers definitely over-engineer things and make things a hell of a lot harder than they have to be. When I taught this stuff, I always said, hey, picture somebody, a great customer, whatever it is, picture them in your mind. I used to give out little picture frames, put a little picture on your desk, and just write a letter to them. You don't, if you write in a very authentic, me to you sort of way, you can be a pretty good copywriter, in my opinion. But the psychology, Craig, is very important because once you start advancing and really, your business really relies on direct response, copy online, copy in print, copy on TV, radio, whatever it might be, then you want to go to those levels where you're trying to really understand the key factors of what is driving somebody. So for example, I'm working with a client who he helps men who are losing their hair. And we are, and thanks to this group, I'm still trying to find the list, but we are trying to find a list of people, men who were recently divorced. Because when a guy is recently divorced and he knows he's going to, and Becky's restaurant's not around anymore, so they can't go there. At least when Becky was running it, right? With the ice cubes. But they need, they know they're going to be back in the game. And if they're losing their hair, they have that whole pressure, the psychology. The real deep psychology is they think, God, I look awful, or I'm not going to get the hot babe, or whatever it is. So the psychology, and it goes in degrees. There's sort of different levels. But, guys like Dan Kennedy, all of us, when you start really going deep and really trying to uncover what really motivates people, what's going to get someone to really pay attention, it's all based in psychology.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of been told that good marketing revolves around math and psychology, right? What are some of the key components of a good sales letter? Richelle.
Got this in the mail. We're going to scan this and make sure that we have it, but it's from Abe RP. Welcome to the 50s Club. Isn't that nice, right? So, yeah, because that's like entering the conversation in my mind. Like, really? Again, I want to.
Well, they screwed up their list now, didn't they? Because you're
didn't they? Somebody, I don't know who they're talking to. But what's really, really awesome about it is that everything that you guys have just described is in this wonderful marketing piece. There's a compelling headline. There's double readership. There's things on the side. So we're going to make sure that we scan this so that you guys can see this, including the envelope, right? It's got all the offer is back there again. And basically for $1, I can join it and get this cool little grab and go cooler. Because once you're over 50, you want to make sure that you never leave home without a grab and go cooler, right? The other one that was even better that I didn't respond to, which I should have, was the one that has the trunk organizer. The trunk organizer. That's the one that I probably would have responded to. But they are talking to the person, right? Breaking it all down, because sometimes, we're not DJs. And so we're like, wait a minute, Mark, how does that work? But we're all going to be 50 one day if the Lord willing and the creek don't rise. And so in it breaks down all of the really cool sales letter. There is a response mechanism that's here. Let me, cover up the address because, I know how y'all do. You'll sit there and send me stuff. So they've got, they want to confirm though, my date of birth. Isn't that fun? But they've got 3 different offers there. So it's 1 year, graduating offer, all things that make direct response work really, really great. And in a sales letter, but I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on, but they got it on a 11 or an 8x14 forward and back. I opened it because this was hard. Right. And it's like, ooh, what is that? What's inside? So I opened the envelope to see what was inside. So having something lumpy, like they did it right. I bet you they paid a really, really great copywriter to do that for them.
Did you say that you had choose your premium in there, or yes. It was just the one offer? Choose your premium. I love it.
No, it has choose to join, right? Choose your membership level. And so it's there and grab and go cooler, right? With the membership, here's what's even better. It says, here, send your check or money order, right? It's like they're talking to people over 50, right? Because the young person go, what's a money order? Like
no Venmo.
No Venmo, no Cash App, no Zelle, no none of that. Yeah. It's pretty stinking good.
That is good. Hey, we have to take a quick break for a message from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
This episode of The Most Incredible Marketing Show Ever is sponsored by booksgrowbusiness.com, the place where busy professionals and business owners get their books published to educate consumers, lead their fields, and leave a legacy. For a complimentary signature book discovery session, visit booksgrowbusiness.com. That's booksgrowbusiness.com. Now, back to the show.
All right. Getting back to it. So Becky, we talked a little bit about whether or not entrepreneurs have to be experts at copywriting or not. Maybe they need to understand it. But if they were going to write their copy and make it infinitely easier, talk about the benefit of a swipe file.
Oh, so everybody's showing off all my swipe stuff in Pittsburgh, and I had to get rid of a lot of it. I have some scanned, but not as much as I once had because I moved out of my house. It's just like taking Richelle's letter that she just showed you and kind of following that outline that how everything is set up. So ChatGPT is your friend, so you can even just go on there and say, write me an emotional, or give me the give me an emotional direct response letter layout, and it will tell you exactly what to do. But one of the things that I wanted to mention was, yes, you can have all the swipe files in the world, but you have to just like Dan and Mike both said, you kind of have to know your product and you have to know who you're writing to. And so I used to, in our independent business advisors classes, I would talk about copywriting, and when we were all together, we would break into groups and I would have them write about whatever that is they had, a product or a service or whatever. And most of the times the people would write down the features of their thing, when in reality, they should be writing about the benefits of their thing. And they're like, I get confused. I don't know how to remember how do I know it's a benefit versus a feature? And I always said, if you can, after you write it, you can ask yourself, what's so great about that? If it doesn't answer that question, then it's a feature. But if you can write and say what's so great about that, then it's a benefit. And that seemed to help them when they were, just making an outline of what they might say. And then they ended up just hiring me anyway, because it's a process. Like, you don't just learn it overnight, And if you have more than one product, God help you, because you're writing those about every single thing that you want to sell, or you should be anyway. So having a swipe file is great because you can say, oh, here's the headline, here's the subhead, here's the bullet points, don't forget that call to action, have different ways to contact you, all the things that go into it. And then you can double check yourself as you go through. Or you can just have a checklist that for everything that you write, it's a kind of a fill in the blank.
Mark, you had your hand up.
Yeah, swipe files are awesome. And I just wanted to add on to what Becky said and also call back what Steve said about salesmanship in print, the John Caples quote. If you want a quick and dirty shortcut also, sales letters are written conversationally. It should be you're talking like you sell. It's salesmanship in print. So you literally, if you are, swipe files are okay if you don't even have a sales process yet. But if you have a sales process already and you've been selling something like face-to-face, in person, or on the phone, record that entire conversation, because essentially that's like the layout of your letter. And you can transcribe that, clean it up, give it to a professional copywriter. But essentially the things that you're doing in person, you're going to put in print. It's salesmanship in print. And if you want a quick shit test for things that you're writing on your postcard to know if they're any good or not, pretend that you're a door-to-door salesman and you knock on the door and they answer it and you spit out one of the words. Since 1984. And then you turn around, thank you, good night. If that doesn't work, that sounds weird and shitty, then it doesn't pass the test. So what would you say in person is what you would want to convert into what's in print?
Mark wins. He's the first cusser.
Oh,
It's shitty. Yeah.
Is shit a bad word still?
And now you're second.
So Dan will say, if you haven't sold a thing in the world, then you shouldn't be, writing copy, or you'd say calling yourself a copywriter. Does anybody agree or disagree with that?
Well, of course, we sell or die. You got to sell. We're in business.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that I run into, occasionally I'll run into some people that are super successful that are shitty, terrible salespeople. I did it again, damn. But I don't know how they did it. They managed to get the right people on their team that actually could sell for them or whatever, and gave them a big chunk. But like, I believe, and I was a terrible salesman when I first started selling, but was forced when I started my DJ company, and I'm going into $1 million homes selling bar mitzvah packages. I was forced myself to become a salesperson face to face. But I think it's something that everybody should, at least they have to experience it, and even just to be able to spot good copy and good salesmanship.
Yeah, like, Dan says, don't hand over your marketing or your money to just anybody without understanding it. And, my son just got out of college and he wants to freelance. I'm like, what are you going to freelance on? He's like, oh, I thought I'd do some copywriting and stuff. Like, what books have you read on copywriting? What have you sold on copywriting? I mean, I have every book known to man right here, right? And, and I don't want to insult him. I want to encourage his ambition, but he hasn't done anything to show that. So the first thing I did was give him Dan's Ultimate Sales Letter book just to start reading, about good copy. Talking about this again, all these conversations that we have on this podcast could go on, and it's a seminar in every episode, but it's really a flash of a seminar in every episode. One of the things about writing good copy is having a good formula: attention, interest, desire, action, problem, agitate, solve. Mike, talk about formulas for writing copy, and what's your favorite?
Well, I mean, I don't think I have a favorite, Craig. It really depends on, what the campaign's about, what I'm trying to do. But I think your point of at least knowing there are formulas that are already out there, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Dan's Ultimate Sales Letter book, which I think every one of us on here has read probably multiple times, is a great primer. So, and listen, AI has been mentioned a couple times. AI is not a tool that business owners and marketers should be afraid of, in my opinion. I was a little skeptical 7-8 months ago because, you hear all this stuff on the news, but AI can be a very powerful tool and asset for helping, folks who aren't as, embedded in all this stuff as we are. So, coming up with outlines, coming up with, a sequence of how a letter or an email should flow and add whatever it might be. But I mean, the fundamentals that you mentioned, I just think they're the classic fundamentals. You state a problem, you create some interest, you solve it, you call for a call to action. I have a little text file on my computer from, I think it's not Bob Sterling. I think it was one of the famous copywriters from the 20th century. It had 7 steps. And I have a little shortcut on my computer right now, where sometimes when I'm even I still need reminders. Oh yeah, geez, what's the urgency here? Have you created urgency? So when you have a formula, you have a checklist, it just makes it that much easier.
Mike, I have a copy of your copy checklist open right now.
Yeah.
And all those questions you just add, is it a specific audience identified and targeted? Does the headline deliver a captivating and complete statement? Very cool tools.
Well, you can share it, Craig.
Yeah, we'll share it. Actually, maybe we'll include it as a gift on the free gift site.
I also think that if you really just think about what problem is it that you solve, and you really start with that as the headline, everything else kind of flows naturally. What's the problem that you solve, and address that with a headline.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it, just to keep it as simple as I can when I'm working on it, is remind them that they have a problem. It's a problem that's solvable, and that you're the person to solve it for them. And everything else kind of fits along with that, in terms of, if you're going to bring in testimonials to support the idea that you're the person, or the way that you're grabbing their attention is really digging into what their problem is. And we've already mentioned it, like trying to agitate that a little bit. But those three things, they have a problem, it's solvable, and you can solve it for them, I think are the key things I'm looking at when I'm looking for just an overall outline or framework.
Richelle was talking about lumpy mail to get like mail open. I have a non-lumpy method that you can swipe. I use like photo enclosed on this one. Yeah. And essentially what I did with this one is you know, when you're writing copy, you think of what's the problem you solve and what are the assets you have? What did you have laying around? Well, I was sparring in the gym and I got a black eye. So I took a picture of it and I had a black eye. So I used this for my hook, but the appeal to this, see, I got to use photo enclosed to get people to open it. And then how do you link it with that letter? And my letter was, and this was an invite to the chapter, how to always kick ass in business without getting a black eye. So it just linked to it. So just like, it's another thing, use what you got to get the thing open and then make your argument.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Sorry to jump in like that, but Mark, it's an excellent point that all of us, and Dan says this all the time. I used to teach it saying, have your marketing radar on all the time. But that is one of the, that makes copywriting that much easier. If you are out for a restaurant and you see either great service or poor service, now you can wrap a story around that potentially, right? I think Dave D does a great example of this in his daily emails. He's always just taking what's going on in his life and making it, relatable to what he's offering. So I think having that marketing radar on is huge, even probably more than a swipe file. Just see what's going on. I was teaching a workshop real quick, a copywriting workshop back in 2007. Fire alarms went off. All these, some of you may remember this. All these fire trucks showed up. Dan's in my head. I start taking photos. My next headline for the product after was that copywriting course or class was so great. The fire alarms off, and I had pictures of all of us standing in front of the fire trucks. That's sort of taking advantage of what you have and really making something out of it.
And you created, you had copy boosters, and you used the template for that particular event as the ad template. So very cool. Joe, we're gonna wrap up with you. So what do you got to say?
Well, we were talking about the owner. Maybe he wants to try it out on his own, and that's why I showed the book earlier. The Ultimate Sales Letter. Just as a quick thing in here, there's an exhibit of the 4 Aces carpet cleaning specialists. And it's like, dear Briarwood area homeowner, you've probably lived in your home for 3, 4, maybe 5 years. And then, it's time, and over time, you've had all this traffic. So you probably need your carpets cleaned. Well, first of all, they're already targeting who they feel will need it. Okay. Then they put in bold, if you can see it. I don't know. We'll see here. Anyways, in bold, we guarantee to make your carpeting look like new, or there's no charge for our services. Here's how it works. And they go into how it works. Like new again, no matter what, in bold, in the middle of the thing. And then he goes into, we were recently called to one home where, while the parents were away, the teenagers, little party had gotten out of control, beer stains, soda, food, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and they tell you about cleaning it up. So act now. Call us today at blah, blah, blah. And he comes up with 6 points underneath of it. Now, remember, the name of the company is 4 Aces Carpet Cleaning Specialists. So they sign it as Hank, Bill, Tom, and Larry, the 4 Aces. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to convince you that they can do the job, that they're personal, and that, we're looking for you because we know you've had your home for a number of years. But they're, without going through all that text, that's just one page. And they were successful with it. So again, it's what you're saying, who you're targeting to, and bringing out those points, and especially if they're in bold. I mean, I've sent out letters myself where I've done that. In fact, one set of letters I sent out underneath my signature, I said, P.S. it's okay if you call me first. Well, all of a sudden, I'm getting a couple of phone calls, right? And then when I call other people, well, yeah, I knew you were calling me.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. We have a minute left. So what I want to go around is just if there's one element that we didn't mention in this episode that you think is critically important to have in an ad or a good sales letter, what would that be? So let's start with you, Steve.
I just think of the saying by the late great Zig Ziglar: sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. So when you say, "Oh, I can't write copy," or "I'm not good," or what, hopefully you're enthusiastic about whatever product or service you're selling. All you got to do is be enthusiastic, transfer that to the buyer, they'll start buying.
Good. Ben.
Yeah, have fun with it. There's so much boring marketing out there that just by being fun and having fun, you're going to attract people to your product or service.
Awesome. Becky.
It has to be an irresistible offer. It has to be so good that they feel stupid turning it down. And you got to throw in a little urgency and scarcity. I don't think we talked enough about that, but that's for another show,
Right.
I guess.
Right. Mark.
I think you have to have a response mechanism or two, like a secondary response mechanism and a deadline and a really believable reason to act.
Yep. Excellent. Joe.
As long as you've done your work and you looked into these clients and you want to address what their pain points are, what their challenges are, that's where you're going to get a response back.
Excellent. Mike.
Copy cosmetics, how your marketing copy looks. I kind of cut my teeth on that. I wrote a chapter in Dan's Ultimate Sales Letter book, the current version, because it is an art and science that we didn't talk about. And it's important.
Excellent. Richelle.
Test different headlines, right? Call out your customer. Make sure that you're talking specifically to them or a person. I think sometimes we forget to really call them out and make sure that they know that we're talking to them.
Excellent. Dan.
Yeah, so kind of like what Richelle said, talk to them. So one of the headlines that worked really well for me in the past when I was reaching out to business owners is something I knew they were frustrated about. I said, "Are you tired of being an advertising victim?" Right. Big reason why a lot of them don't want to spend money on their marketing is it doesn't work, or they've been hoodwinked, or they've had someone take their money that didn't do a very good job. And that comes back to, I think Becky said it a little while ago, listen to your prospective audience, what their pain is, and try to hit it in that headline. Because if you don't suck them in early, all that copy you wrote is going to go for naught. So try to address that pain point early on.
Excellent. I would add that we didn't mention it, the PS. A lot of people jump to the end of the letter to see what the PS is, and that is, number one, restate your offer additional bonuses or reasons why to take action now, that sort of thing. We have to wrap up, unfortunately, but this has been a great episode, and again, one that should be a full-day seminar on. I encourage you to read any of the books mentioned, Ultimate Sales Letter, which is the primer. And I think Dan mentions a few other books in that book alone. So, and if anybody here, you resonated with anybody here who, shared their wisdom with you, we have a free gift pack, mostincrediblemarketingshowever.com. And we meet every Thursday here. Our expert panel will share their secrets on Dan Kennedy style marketing and how they've used it, how they've helped clients use it. And every episode just keeps on getting better and better. So I'm excited. So thank you, everybody, for being on here, our expert panel. And thank you for listening and watching. We'll see you next Thursday.
See ya.
Thank you for joining us this week on The Most Incredible Marketing Show Ever. New episodes are available every week on Thursdays. To receive a free gift pack from our expert panelists and get access to show notes from previous episodes, be sure to visit our website, www.mostincrediblemarketingshowever.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell up in the right-hand corner to be notified of future episodes so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you clicking the like button and leaving a comment on what big aha you got during the show. That's it for today's episode. See you next week.